Hey, it's New Thought Talk. I'm your host, the Reverend Steve Walling from the Spiritual Awareness Center, located in Fresno, California. Fresno, the heart of the Central Valley, and Central Valley, the heart of the great state of California. I am glad to be here today. I'm glad you're here with me, and I hope you're having the great day that you affirmed that was going to be yours today before you ever opened your eyes this morning. And if you haven't done that, make it a habit. You'd be surprised how it just changes your entire day before you even open your eyes. Affirm the gift that God has given you and affirm your reaction to the gift that it is just a great day. Because it is, for sure and for real. Anyway, we've been going through this little book that was originally written under the title This Thing Called Life. Currently, it is titled The Art of Life and written by Dr. Ernest Holmes. Today, we're going to be going into chapter 11. And in chapter 11, he's beginning to talk about treatment, affirmative prayer treatment. So I'm going to touch on a couple of things before I get actually into the book itself. And the first thing, I want to go back to the source book, right? In the New Testament, in John chapter 5, come down here and we read where Jesus is talking to a group of individuals, and he says, I tell you the truth, the Son can do nothing by himself. He can do only what he sees the Father doing, because whatever the Father does, the Son also does. For the Father loves the Son and shows him all that he does. When we're talking about the Son in that context, we're talking about Christ, the Christ consciousness, the Christ mind within us, that which we were created in the image and the likeness, the nature of the divine, exists at the core of our being. And when we have that understanding as an integral part of our foundation, as we move forward into that day that we claimed our good, this day, this good, that's where we start from. So, in a little book that Holmes wrote called How to Use the Science of Mind, and we're going to move on into this concept of prayer, he says, technique for practice. And practice is the practice of affirmative prayer. And one of the things that Dr. Holmes talks about a lot is this idea of practice. And unlike maybe a lot of other spiritual teachings, daily practice is an integral and important part of this science that we call the science of mind and spirit, religious science. He says, unless there is a method for spiritual mind practice, then such practice would not be scientific. And unless there were a definite technique, its use could not be taught. Some people are fortunate enough to possess absolute conviction and faith through intuition, and some people are indeed fortunate. But all do not have this inward awareness. And if we waited for divine power to be released only through those few who possess this faith, there would be little hope for the rest of us. We're not, and we're going to talk about individualism today also, we're not just put aside in life. Sometimes people, they have an idea, if you will, and oftentimes this idea ends up as a part of their belief system, that they're just here, that, okay, maybe there is a God, maybe God does answer prayer, but who am I? I'm just this little speck in a universe that's a little speck that's on and on and on. That's not true. You are incredibly important as the individual that you are. And it's important that we understand that. We start with that definition of ourself as being an incredible individual being that the divine first cause, God, created, such that prior to our expression in this life, there's never been one like us, and there will never be another one like us. And we have a purpose, and our purpose is to live our individuality and to live it with a higher, greater degree of livingness and we have provided for us in potential from our Creator, from our Father, if you will, from our Mother, from the God, the Goddess, however you want to understand it, provided for us in potential everything that we could need, want, desire. As I said, and I've continued to say over the last several weeks as we've talked about this, the concept, the idea that all life is suffering. We weren't created to suffer. And Dr. Holmes talks about that. He said, humanity has learned all that it needs to learn from suffering. Now's our time. Well, when we talk about now being our time, we have to realize that we're not making an assumption that now being our time is something that is just a part of the continuum that has never really changed, because things really have changed. The history of humanity is full of huge, earth-shattering changes in understanding and consciousness until we get to the birth of new thought, religious science. The information's been there. Teachers, spiritual teachers have taught it, but humanity had to get to this point to where we could understand it, embody it, and put it into practice in our lives. Our life is not supposed to be a life of suffering. That doesn't mean that it's not going to have its struggles. Absolutely. We were created to meet struggle, to overcome struggle, to face struggle with the understanding that we have a bigger God, regardless of what life brings at us. That's an immense shift in consciousness. And it's an evolutionary shift, if you will, as humanity begins to grasp that and put it into play. I talk about that we can change the world, but we change the world by changing ourselves. That's not just an idea for a personal, an improved spiritual life experience. Imagine, if you will, and Holmes believed this, and he taught this, that when enough people lift their consciousness up to a level of understanding of the truth of who they are, that the entire world will shift in its understanding of who and what we are. Things like disease, lack, limitation, war, hate, anger, all the things that, we ascribe to evil. It's not truly evil. It's just the remnants of humanity living in its past beliefs, its past race consciousness that has held us in bondage that we don't have to be. But we have to get to the point to where we make that decision now, today. And that's one of the things that motivates me as I read, study, and I teach this. It's this concept. But in this evolutionary process of consciousness, there also has to be a change in our understanding of the divine, of God. And that's one of the things that Dr. Holmes also addressed. And you'll find it in various places, but on page 131 in The Science of Mind, Holmes writes, and I read this recently, I'm sure, man's idea of deity evolves with his other ideas. After a belief in many gods, he comes to realize there is one mind and one spirit back of all manifestation, one spirit or self-conscious life acting through the medium of the one mind or subjective law, producing many manifestations. Multiplicity comes from unity without breaking up the unity of the whole. We are incredibly individualized, and yet at the same time, we're all part of the greater one. There is only one life. That life is God. That life is our life now. In a world today when so many young people are seeking to embody their individuality, and they look for all sorts of different self-defining ways to do it, but with each of those ways, what they in fact do is they create a separateness between themselves and the rest of humanity, the rest of the oneness of all that is, without realizing how they have really defeated the purpose. Because that inner urge to express individuality is part of that sonship, the Christ within us. We seek that. We seek to be an individual. We seek to express it. But in so doing, we do it with the understanding that we're part of a greater whole, an incredible individuality. It's like, imagine, if you will, a diamond with a facet that refuses to be polished because it wants to be separate from, self-defined, different from. And yet, if it just allowed itself to be the individual facet that it is, it shines, it's part of the diamond whole, but it's still its own individuality. And that's what we're getting at. That's what we're trying to understand and learn in this journey that we call our life experience. I've got a whole lot more to read. One more thing here out of, this is a little book written by Dr. Holmes. It's called The Hidden Power of the Bible. And this is the secret of prayer. And when we look at this, Holmes says the secret of prayer and its power in the outward life depends upon an unconditioned faith in and reliance upon the inner presence. We must enter the closet. That is, we are to shut out all else and enter the precinct of spirit in quietness and confidence, believing. Prayer has power. Prayer has power, but not through repetition, but by belief and acceptance. Whose belief? Whose acceptance? Ours, and ours alone. This is part of the power that we have. We talk about there's a power and a presence for good in the universe that's available to each and every one of us. But we have to open ourselves up. We have to make ourselves available to it. And it's there. It's awesome. It's power. It's God. And it's ours to use at the level of our belief. And that's one of the teachings that the master teacher brought into the world, that it's done unto us as we believe. And when we pray believing, our Father, God, however you want to understand it, answers our prayer at the level of our belief before we even speak the words. On that note, we're going to take our first break. I'll see you when we come back. We'll pick it up from there.
You enter this door with expired tags. Beyond is another dimension, a dimension of regulations, a dimension of long waits. You have reached the registration zone. What looks like an ordinary shop is actually Mitchell Smog, located in the heart of the Tower District, a few minutes from the DMV. Mitchell Smog offers your vehicle a STAR-certified smog inspection. So remember Mitchell Smog when you need to pass through the registration zone.
The Saga of Bridget and Amanda by Carol Love Forbes brings to life the struggles of historical women in early America. Find the Saga of Bridget and Amanda on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and order your copy today.
Hello everyone, my name is Miss G. I offer fun and affordable promotion and advertisement on my talk show. It is called Fresno Vibes. We talk, we play awesome music. I also feature a bunch of different bartenders from different places. I like to have restaurants. I like to have any event, any kind of fun stuff. Contact me at rmgmissg@gmail.com and we will have so much fun. And we will promote your business, promote your event right here on my show. So contact me. We'll have fun. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Chris DeVold. Tune in every Friday night on CentralValleyTalk.com when I bring you Sex, Drugs, Chris DeVold, where I'll give you 3 guesses on what we talk about. And I also vow to bring you 1 live local music act a week. So tune in every week because you never know what kind of music you're going to hear right here on CentralValleyTalk.com.
A dynamic litigator, in-tune listener, and forward thinker with almost a decade of experience, Nasser Nekomanish is a skilled attorney servicing clients throughout the Central Valley. When you need a lawyer, call 559-441-0114 and ask for Nasser Nekomanish.
Today, we bring you the first part of our global broadcast exclusive conversation.
The streets of Tahrir have once again been filled.
Key issues here at the United Nations Climate Change Conference remain unresolved.
Police are saying the protesters to move further and further away.
I'm Amy Goodman.
And I'm Juan Gonzalez.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. I am your host, the Reverend Steve Walling. We are continuing through The Art of Life, this thing called Life, written by Dr. Ernest Holmes. I want to pick up here, if you happen to have a copy of the textbook, on page 72, you'll read the first great discovery. And Holmes says, the first great discovery man made was when he could think. This was the day when he first said, I am. This marked his first day of personal attainment. From that day, man became an individual and had to make all further progress himself. And of course, you know, he wrote in the male pronoun, but it's directed at all, however you choose to self-identify. And from that day, there was no compulsory evolution. Mankind had to work out in conscious union with this thing called life. There's one life. This life energy began, and it's never ended. It's never ceased. It's never died. And it's not recreated anew with each individual. It's just that life that is expanding through that individual, because we're all part of the one, the great unity, the wholeness. And so as we move into this idea of prayer, the power of prayer, and this idea of life, Holmes writes, and then you'll find this on page 445, he says, we need spiritual experience of firsthand knowledge of life and reality. There is no medium between God and man, nothing between life and living, between heaven and hell, but an idea. But an idea has no real value until it becomes an experience. Excuse me. Our individual experience, ours. And we begin to realize that experience through our daily spiritual practices of meditation, of affirmations, denials, affirmative treatment, gratitude, these things that we do each and every day. And if we're not, I highly recommend that you begin to consider making that a daily habitual practice. You'll find the effects in your life are incredible. But one last thing I want to cover before we get into this concept of prayer, because sometimes this is where some people tend to run afoul, if you will, because well-meaning though they may be, when we seek to begin to be the responsible, creative consciousness in our own life, and we begin to affirm our good and to deny limitation in our life and to speak our word. One of several things we need to understand is, one, when we speak our word affirmatively for ourselves, we also are affirming good for all. We raise them up with us. And when we raise all, there is no exception to that all. And so I'm going to go back again to something I read on a regular basis, which is on page 459, the two great commandments. The two great commandments are to love God and our brother man. On these two hang all the law and the prophets. Love is a complete unity with life, and we cannot enter into a state unless we are in this state, unless we are in a unity with all that lives, for all life is one. Yes, I know the world is full of chaos, and there are opposing ideas and consciousness and beliefs, and the list goes on and on. We may want to establish boundaries, but we cannot remove love from the situation. We cannot remove love from our heart. We cannot replace it with something other than love. There is no other. And when we come back, I'll go to page 285 in the textbook. You can go there ahead of me if you want. And Holmes explains it there very succinctly. But now I want to get into this is chapter 11. He says, your place in life, and life with a capital L, is to become an outlet for life, for God's wisdom, intelligence, love, beauty, and creativeness. Your place in life, your purpose in life is to become an outlet for divine wisdom, intelligence, love, beauty, and creativeness as expressed through you as the individual. How awesome is that? Through you, no one else. In no way can anybody else express it like you can express it. That's that concept, that idea of individuality. We are created to live life with a purpose, and that purpose is to live it however we self-define as living life at a higher, greater degree of livingness. Now, for some people, that may be an aesthetics life. For some, it may be an artist's life or a musician's life. For some, it may be, an adventurer. For some, it may be an educator. Whatever it is, for each and every one of us, it's individualized. But as I've said so many times, we are all created equally. We're all created equal. Well, what does that mean? It means we're all created equal, but we're not all born in equal conditions. However, regardless of the conditions we are born into, ultimately, within us, that divine, the Christ within, it is the source of everything that we could need to overcome, to transcend, to move beyond, to triumph over, however you want to, whatever words you want to use, to be raised above, to stand out. It's there. It's waiting and awaiting us to make that personal self-discovery. Problem is, society has told us for so long that because we are, and you can fill in anything after the we are, we're less than, okay? Whether that be age, whether it be sex, orientation, whether it be racial issues, whether it be geography, it doesn't make any difference. Because we have not, humanity has not evolved in consciousness to that point of understanding that we're not bound by, we're not limited by, and humanity still teaches a concept, an understanding that life is suffering, and we have to overcome the suffering. Well, we don't, because we don't have to suffer. When life happens in ways that bring sadness into our life, we don't have to suffer in that sadness. We can realize there's a greater truth. We can grow beyond it. It's a shift in how we look at life in general for each of us as individuals. But it's amazing. We can all do it. We all have that power. We all have that availability to us. And when we begin to seek to live our lives that way, not only do our lives change, but the lives of those around us. The ultimate goal is to move beyond, to transcend the entire limiting process in which humanity has been tied for eons, if you will. We've reached that point where we can transcend it. We've reached that point to where humanity has, as individuals, has a great enough understanding of so many different things that we need to understand in order to move beyond the limitations that have kept us in bondage, to move beyond our prejudice, move beyond our hate, our judgments, to take all the empowered spiritual teachings of the past and put them into practice within ourselves and seek to create that crazily abundant life that is available not only to each of us as individuals, but to humanity as a whole. And this is what Holmes believed. It's my belief that that's what he believed. In the things I've read, he says, your relationship to life is that you are of like nature to it. And life here is capitalized. He's talking about the divine principle, God, Spirit, Goddess. We are of like nature. We are the nature of. We are the image and likeness in the spiritual beingness. There is an absolute truth. We are an expression of that absolute. And the more we recognize that, the more we begin to live in principle the truth of who we are. He says, if you continue this practice long enough, and the practice is recognizing that we can, through organizing our ability to control our trend of thinking in such a way that we reshape the beliefs that we hold. And we all need to do it on some level. And it's not always easy, but it is always available to us. He says if you practice long enough, you will find yourself engaging in some part of your being. You will be engaged in some part of your being with something which has never been troubled, with something that has never known fear, that's never known want, that's never known worry, that's never known judgment, but has always been there and has always been the presence of love within the central core of our beingness. It awaits our personal discovery. And in that personal discovery, that's when we begin to experience this, what he called spiritual experience that's necessary to each and every one of us. The two great commandments. We have to know that. We have to live that. Okay? This idea, okay, that he says, in conversation, we assume great knowledge of religion and philosophy, but how much do we really experience? You may have all the book learning in the world. You may have taken classes. You may have memorized. You may be able to recite. But where are you on an experiential level at this point? And that experiential level comes only through continued practice. It may come slowly. It may come abruptly. It may be a process of inner evolution. It may be a process of inner revolution, but it is there awaiting our discovery, our finding it, our recognizing it, and in that, claiming our relationship to the universe itself. We'll take our next break, and I'll see you when we come back. Hi, I'm the host of New Thought Talk, Reverend Steve Walling, and I want to take a moment today and give you an opportunity to support our ministry, support our show. You can do that through a PayPal payment. You send the payment through PayPal to the email address of Madera, MADERASAC @gmail.com. If you don't have a PayPal account, you can go down below the link and you can find where you can enter a debit or credit card. I want to thank those that have supported us and those that will continue to support us. You have a great day. Bye.
Are you thinking of selling your home? Since 2004, the Souza Group, brokered by eXp Realty, has specialized in premier property listings and sales located in the Clovis Unified and North Fresno markets. The Souza Group will do their best to exceed your expectations. Visit clovisunifiedhomes.com. If your home floods, who will you call? When your house springs a leak, it's time to call Clean Master Emergency Flood Service at 559-213-9430. Clean Master will be there in 60 minutes to start fixing your home. And Clean Master bills your insurance directly, saving you the hassle because you've got enough to worry about. Clean Master also offers carpet and upholstery cleaning, carpet repair, pet odor removal, and more. Remember, Clean Master Emergency Flood Service. 559-213-9430 and visit cleanmasterflood.com. Pour yourself a glass of Crybaby wine available at the market and Sam's Italian Deli. And remember to ask for Crybaby wine at your favorite restaurant.
Forget about the higher good of food, right? You're growing a product that people enjoy really all over the world. I mean, how does that make you feel?
I think about that all the time. I think about the families sitting around a table, enjoying a meal. I just see that what we do brings families together.
I mean, we're blessed. We're in paradise for food.
The Kern family of the Kern Family Farm invites you to eat delicious, nutritious, organic produce available at the Gnarly Carrot, located at 32954 Road 222 in North Fork, California. The Gnarly Carrot is a local, natural, seasonally changing market offering a wide range of products from local Central Valley vendors. Get your caffeine fix, grab a smoothie, and support small businesses. Learn more at KernFamilyFarm.com and visit the Gnarly Carrot today. Dr. in Sukasa allows you to connect with your doctor when you need a quick treatment. Avoid a trip to a medical clinic or emergency room and connect by video with your doctor from your home, work, or anywhere. Just go to drinsukasa.com on your phone, tablet, or computer. Dr. in Sukasa provides quality care that is convenient, bilingual, and affordable, so you are never left without access to health care. Visit drinsukasa.com today.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. So, we're talking about affirmative prayer. We're talking about treatment. Before I get into it, I'm going to once again go back to the textbook. And Holmes says, so on page 166, he says, treatment is not explained in the Bible. He says, from beginning to end, in one way or another, the Bible teaches the law of cause and effect. And we'll talk more about that because it's important that we have an understanding of exactly what our relationship to that is and how it plays out in our life. But he says the Bible teaches the law of cause and effect based on the premise that the universe is a spiritual system, that man is included in this spiritual system, that the infinite creates by the power of its word or the contemplation of its consciousness. And as a complement to this, man reproduces the universe on an individual scale. There's a law that responds, just like the law of gravity. You know, the law of gravity always responds. There's no place, no space where you can go where you're not subject to gravity as long as you're here on this planet. The law of cause and effect, the great law, is taught in many different spiritual philosophies. There are no exceptions to it. It is the creative process in the universe, if you will. Imagine, for simplicity's sake, that consciousness, God, first cause. We'll say God has a thought. Whatever God thinks demonstrates it in materiality, in manifestation. The space between thought and thing is where the law of cause and effect lives. Thought being the cause, effect being the demonstration. And that's pretty simplistic, I know, but I'm going to leave it for right now because I want to move on to this idea of the power that's available to us, the power that we use every day. But we don't use it consciously most of the time, and oftentimes we don't even use it constructively. And it creates chaos in our life, if you will. And you know, chaos is not always a good thing. So, Holmes goes on to say here, he says, realizing that all creation is a result of this original life, and that creation is now going on. Plants are growing. In the garden, planets are being formed. Hair is growing on our head. Creation is something that is always taking place, and that you are some part of this creative order. What is more reasonable to assume than that the movement of your thought upon your environment projects that environment? This is the substance of this whole teaching. Our thought is creative. We are created in the nature of God, the image and likeness. We are consciousness. Humanity got to that I am moment, but we had to evolve in consciousness to move beyond that I am moment to the realization of that which we call life or God and our role in the universal creation and our ability to have an effect on it. You may have heard the phrase, we create our own reality. There's a whole lot more truth in that than what a lot of people realize. So if we're leading our life and we're not leading our life in a way that we consciously say we want to, then it's time that we make some changes and some choices. And it starts with choice. Louise Hay used to say, change your thinking, change your life. Ernest Holmes said that also. There's got to be something to it, right? When we talk about changing our thinking, we're not just talking about one thought. We're talking about changing our whole thinking consciousness, if you will. And again, this is habit. We think, the way we think is habit. Most of the beliefs we hold are really habitual thoughts that we have decided are true, are facts, and that we have filed away in our subjective mind, our subconscious mind, our memory, and we hold those as beliefs, okay? Some may be and some may not be factual or truth, but we live as if they are, and as we live as if they are, then our life experience is that expression of it. So we're going to change that. We're going to make a choice to live a greater, more abundant, more prosperous life without the limiting factors that life has maybe held us to in the past. Okay, it's going to take time. We're going to start right where we're at, feeling right the way we feel now, accepting this as not the place that we want to be, but the launch pad, if you will, to where we're going to go. We realize that along the way that life will come at us at the speed of life, which means that there will be obstacles, there will be struggles. We are up to the struggle. We are empowered over the obstacle because we have a bigger God. So first thing we got to begin to wrap our mind around is the fact that we got a bigger God. We got a bigger God that's individual to each and every one of us. We don't have to go outside of ourselves. We can own that thought and begin to create that as an inner belief. We can in that owning that thought as an inner belief, we can also begin to make a choice to understand that we are here to express love, harmony, happiness. That's our purpose at a higher, greater degree throughout our day, each and every day. Starting right where we're at means we're not going to self-define by any limiting factors. We just are. We just are that creation, this place, here, now. And God, in all that God is available to us. Not out there, but in here, in our minds and our hearts. We're never apart from it, never separate from it. We move forward in consciousness, okay? He says, you wish goodness instead of evil, health instead of disease, success instead of limitation, joy in the place of sorrow. Life is all these things and being all these things and having an intense desire within itself to be expressed. It presses against you, desiring your freedom, your joy, and your wholeness. That which is in you that seeks those good things is life itself. That idea, that concept, that feeling, the core of your beingness. That's what it wants for you. That's what it wants you to express because it expresses that through you. God expresses life through us. God provides for us through us, not from outside of us. So, okay, I'm just going to kind of move forward here. If you're familiar with religious science, you know that we have our 5-step, or if you happen to follow the Frederick Bales model's 7 steps of affirmative treatment. Holmes doesn't really address that way in this book, and because there are people that may be watching that are not necessarily real familiar with science of mind, religious science. I'm just going to go through what Holmes has in this book. You can apply it. You can utilize however it is that works for you, that gets you to the point that you need to be, okay? So he starts off, he says, the following is a suggested procedure for helping yourself or another. He says, relax mentally and physically. Find that place, okay? We're beginning a practice. Don't do it in the middle of a crowded bus or on the street corner. Find that place where you live, or where you live's a little chaotic, maybe outside somewhere, where you can begin to just be at peace. And this is where if you haven't already, begin to practice a daily practice of meditation, it helps build that skill, getting into this space. But this isn't your meditation. This is affirmative treatment. This is a form of prayer, if you will. He says, then, when you get in this state of relaxation, he says, know that your word, the word that you speak, even if you speak with your mouth closed, your word, okay, is the presence, the power, the activity of the supreme law of life, now operating through you. There's one life. That life is God. That life is my life now. There's one mind. That mind is God. That mind is my mind now. As I speak my word goes forth and is empowered by the law. That's the law I spoke of earlier, the law of cause and effect. Okay? But you've got to, as he says, you've got to have an understanding. You've got to know that as you speak your word. And then he goes on to say, he says, recognize that as you speak your word, whether it be about yourself or another, that they are one with and a definite part of this perfect life. There is no separation. We're all part of this one great unity. And as a result, because we are all part of this one great unity, this oneness, there is no separation. We all have the ability through the divine principle to work in speaking our word, our affirming good for another or for ourselves. You know, we can, if kind of like we can tap into the battery, if you will, of all the universe. He says, recognize that there is a truth about yourself. There's an absolute truth. There's an absolute truth that you were created whole, perfect, and complete. And before you want to throw up all the stuff about, well, I don't have this, or, you know, I have this, we're not talking about the physical you, we're talking about the spiritual you, the you that was created in the image, in the likeness, and the nature of. And that is the absolute true you. Between that absolute truth and your expression in this physical materiality that we call life, maybe there's been a little resistance or whatever. When we begin to know the truth, what we're doing is we're relating back to the absolute truth of who and what we are. When we begin to realize that that is true, then we begin to see demonstration and expression in this physical, material life that we live. He says, we declare that our word is the law of spirit establishing harmony and right adjustment, right action in our life. Think about that. We make that as a declaration. We declare that our word is a law, is the law in our life. Awesome. And if you think that that may be a bit of a stretch, continue to practice, okay? He says, when treating for success, okay, or the control of conditions, affirm that success and prosperity are the law of our beingness, okay? Law of our beingness. We are governed by pure intelligence and inspired by divine wisdom. We are guided into right action and compelled to make right decisions. We seek the presence and the power that exists within us, the intuition that exists within us, okay? We are surrounded by love, We're surrounded in a loving nature, a loving medium, a loving expression, regardless of what our physical senses tell us. Okay? When we begin to claim that loving surroundedness, we'll begin to see expressions of it in our life. It's crazily awesome. It really is. He says, and if we're treating for or affirming for physical conditions, we can conform our statements to meet the needs of ourself or the one we're treating for. Okay? If you have a copy of the textbook, there is a great section in there where Holmes talks about treating for physical conditions. And it's really quite amazing if you get in and you begin to understand what it is that Holmes is teaching in that. And then we reach the end, which is a realization of the truth of what we have spoken. In that realization of that truth, we embody gratitude and thanksgiving. We own the reality of the words that we've spoken within ourselves. And in that owningness, we are thankful and grateful. And then, as we do in any of our affirming treatments, we let it go. We give it up to divine. We let God. We get out of the way. Speaking of getting out of the way, I ran a little long, so we're going to take our last break. I just realized this, and I'll see you when we come back.
Hi everyone, I am Sparkle Sujin with the Everything Sparkle Show. Tune in every Thursday live at 4 p.m. You will see people that are motivational, inspirational, inspiring, and of course, entertaining. We have a great time. We learn things about how big celebrities are inspiring big names here in Fresno. Hugh Hefner is the reason we have Fresno Magazine, and Gnarly Charlie got his start because Johnny Carson told him to. So, tune in, you'll learn something new, and have a good time.
Visit the beautiful city of Exeter and visit ExeterChamber.com. The Chamber's mission is to promote, support, and enable Exeter to prosper, creating a strong local economy, promoting community, and providing networking opportunities. Follow the Chamber on Facebook and Twitter, or give the Chamber a call at 559-592-2919.
Call Peachy's Catering for all your special occasions. Available to cook any variety of foods and desserts that will leave your taste buds wanting more. Call 559-558-2682 and follow Peachy's on Instagram and Facebook.
Is everything in life draining you? Come to Stretch 360. Our professional staff can offer you many options for relaxation like deep tissue or hot stone massages, infrared medical grade sauna. Once you leave us, you'll look and feel like $1,000,000. Stretch 360. Relaxation is only a stretch away.
Call Nicole Hamilton McManus at 559-917-3040 to buy this perfect, romantic, rustic ranch with a 2-home setup. Located only 12 miles from the entrance to Kings Canyon and Sequoia National Parks. This beautifully maintained property boasts of amenities and custom features. The main home is a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,670 square feet. The guest home is 2 bedrooms, 1 bath with 1,163 square feet. Also features a 75-foot lap pool, a cabana, a beautiful garden, and 2 small nearby ponds. Call Nicole Hamilton McManus at 559-917-3040. The Art of Becoming Who We Are in Christ by Jolene Kennedy is a book about the process of maturity as we find our true identity, since God's promises must be received, embraced, and activated within us. Get your copy today and check out JoleneKennedy.com. Fleet Feet Fresno is more than just a running and sportswear store. Fleet Feet Sports' mission is to provide runners and other active Fresnans with gear that fits their individual needs, training that helps them reach their fitness goals, and races that satisfy their competitive spirit. Get to know Fleet Feet Fresno today.
CentralValleyTalk.com
Welcome back to Do Thought Talk. Boy, time got away from me today. So anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up rather quickly. I suggest that if you have a copy of the book, you go through and read it. Anyway, at the end of this chapter, he says, you'll become increasingly conscious of this power by the increasing use you make of it, putting it into practice, practicing. He says you will grow in faith through demonstration. As we talked about, we don't grow in faith by quantity, but we grow in faith by intensity, the power of faith, if you will, in our life. He says the secret of the whole thing is to believe that you can. Remember, the limitation of life never come out of the law of life. Limitation came from a certain use of power, which in itself is limitless, okay? The power is limitless. The use has created limitation. He says the law has never changed. You are merely changing your position in it. We change our position in it. We change our consciousness in it. We change our life experience and expression in it. Life will bring obstacles. Life will bring things that could be pretty scary, right? But if we have aligned ourselves in faith, if we realize and understand we have a bigger God, we will experience life from a position of wonderment, adventure, overcoming, learning, growth, and a demonstration of greater and higher degree of livingness. And we come to that realization not only for ourselves, but we help bring the whole world to that understanding also. Before I close, I want to go back because I mentioned this earlier, and this is so important. As we begin to speak our word, as we go into that meditative understanding within ourselves, the law responds to us, okay? Responds to the words that we speak, the ideas that we have in mind. But we have to know that God, Spirit, first cause, principle, knows us as we know ourselves. And if we know within our hearts and minds judgment, prejudice, hate, anger, belief in limitation, whatever, okay, that's where we're tied. The highest level of our ability to demonstrate in our life is limited by our lowest level of consciousness, if you will. If you go to page 285 in the textbook, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but Holmes says, as we come into the spiritual realm, which is a perfectly natural and normal realm, and we do that as we move into our affirming treatment, right? He says we have to come into it in its own nature. It is a unity. There must be nothing vicious in it. And he goes on to remind us what it was that the master teacher spoke. You know, we have to create that foundation within ourselves. And for some of us, giving up old habits of righteous indignation, if you will. You know, when we know that we are right and whatever the opposition is wrong and they have to be defeated and we have to bring that passion and bring that energy, what we're really doing is we're creating more chains to bind ourselves. That doesn't mean we give up what it is that we believe in. But what it does mean is that when we look across whatever we're looking across to, we still realize that what we're looking at is God expressing as that. And therefore, foundationally, it is still God's love. And we love our neighbor. We love God. We love ourselves. The law responds at that level. And that's an awesome level when we begin to utilize that in our life, create that within our own consciousness, and build our whole spiritual journey and beingness and practice around that idea. As Jesus said, love your neighbor, love God. On these two things hang all the laws and the prophet. Can't get any better than that. That's awesome. So we finished this up this week. We'll be back next week. I hope you've enjoyed today. You know, I get people that they message me through Facebook or send me emails. I answer them. I enjoy hearing from you. I enjoy corresponding with you, answering questions. And if you have an idea or you have something that you would like to maybe see covered in some future online show, let me know. And we'll see if we can't possibly, cover it in a way that will address the issues that you want to address. Life is good. The day is great. God is awesome. We are all here to express life, God, at greater and higher degrees. Doesn't get any better than that. Thanks for being with me today. And as you go through the week, know that the light of God surrounds you, the love of God enfolds you, the power of God protects you, and the presence of God watches over you. Wherever you are, God is there. All is well. Life is good. See you next week. Thanks for being with me.